Hey everybody, welcome to Swedenborgian Life Live. Today we are going to be talking about angels and demons. Copyright Dan Brown, who's the guy, Da Vinci Code. Yeah. But we're going to look into a little bit what's behind that whole phenomenon. My name is Curtis Childs. I'm the host of Swedenborgian Life. This is Jonathan Rose.
Hey everybody.
He's a co-host, but he's also the series editor. He has another job, which is a series editor of the New Century Edition translation of Emanuel Swedenborg's, from which books you will see quotes today.
That's right.
And so on. Thank you for your work, and thanks for being here with us.
It's very much fun, Curtis. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for being with us. The Swedenborgian Life Live experience wouldn't be live if you guys weren't here. I mean, I guess it would technically be live, but it'd be like a real sad kind of live.
It would be. Yeah.
We're here live. Hopefully someone watches this at some point. We're going to go through our usual steps today in case this is your first time. They follow as such. We're going to have an icebreaker question to get us started.
That's right.
We will be looking for your responses as well as ours. We'll have our Swedenborg keywords where we make it possible for all of you to be able to read Swedenborg. Because you can't just do it off the shelf. It's
right.
It's a
Need a little bit
complex
of help.
coconut to crack.
Yeah.
We're going to go on a road trip into the spiritual world. We're going to get live Q&A. We're going to hear from a fan who is enthusiastically excited about Swedenborg, and I can use those two words in sequence because it's our friend Chris Dunn who
Yes, that's
does
right.
describe him well.
That does describe him.
And then we'll be hearing your responses to this icebreaker. So if you can believe we're going to do all that, then you're right, because we're starting right now in section 1 with the icebreaker. This is what we do every week to make things a little less awkward. Did I say that last time?
Maybe.
It's awkward that I just said that again. Good. I wish we had something to talk about to take our mind off of that. How about a question?
Oh, a question's
How
good.
about a Swedenborg-related question? And as we answer this here, we want you all to be breaking the ice in the chat room, writing your own responses. We'll be gathering them, and at the end, we'll take a look at that. The question is as follows. Oh, I thought it was going to appear below. I forgot. The icebreaker. What biblical stories' internal sense are you most curious about?
Particularly biblical questions.
And I do feel like you're not gonna get a question like this anywhere else because it's a very Swedenborgy question.
It is,
and
isn't it?
Swedenborg's enthusiast question, because it's not just like, oh, you know that Swedenborg talks about an inner level of meaning to the stories in the Old and New Testaments, but which one are you interested in?
Yeah,
so you have
right.
to be a
The
little
bar
bit
is
of a
high tonight.
Swedenborg
Yeah,
nerd.
that's right.
So let's do this. I know that you're a scholar of Swedenborg and the Bible. So is there anything any stone you feel like is currently unturned?
Wow. Well, first of all, I just want to say that so often when I'm reading, like this word or that word will be a little clear, but most of it is like, wow, what is going on? I just have that kind of permanent experience of reading scripture thinking, I maybe get a hint of what that is, but what is that?
Yeah.
But should I answer the question? What do you think?
Please do.
Well, I've been reading lately in Exodus, early on in Exodus there, and something just struck me as a pattern in the story. I've read that story many times before. It's about Moses, how he leads the children of Israel out of Egypt and all that. But a little detail jumped out at me recently when I was reading, which is that Moses, in the sort of human story or something, he goes to Pharaoh, says, let my people go, and then he leads the people out into the wilderness, eventually takes them to Mount Sinai. And gives
Several movies made about that.
That's
whole
right.
thing.
The Ten Commandments and all that stuff.
Prince
right?
of Egypt.
That's what they do.
So on, yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that before he does that, he does the thing, and that whole thing lasts for 40 years.
Yeah.
Before that, he does the same thing, only he's a leader of sheep. He's a shepherd, and I remember that detail that he was in charge of these sheep. But it was for 40 years, and first of all, when he first encounters the sheep, he drives away these bad shepherds, and then he waters the sheep, and then he leads them off into the wilderness for 40 years, and they get to Mount Sinai.
What?
And so it's like he does a whole practice run with the sheep. That comes first. And so from the age of 40 to 80, he does that. And then when he's 80, he does it with the human beings. And so I was really wondering, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And does that reflect something in Jesus's life? Because so many things in the Old Testament really inwardly have something to do with Jesus's story. So I have no clue, but it was just a fascinating pattern to me.
Yeah. Wow. And if Moses wrote his autobiography, you'd think it'd mostly be about that journey, but just as much it's about the 40 years I spent with his sheep.
Yeah,
like, that's just
right.
as big a section.
Yeah, probably
Wow.
taught him a lot.
Yeah, but it's got to, it's got to mean something. And
So-
the more bizarrely it sticks out, the more it seems like it's got ripe with
It
meaning.
has to, and Swedenborg
Yeah.
talks about that, doesn't he? That
Yeah.
you can tell it's got some meaning, because
Yeah.
why would it be this way?
Cool.
How about you?
So there's, Swedenborg may well explain this one. I don't know, but I think there's a case in which Swedenborg says that the internal sense, there's like the spiritual meaning of the Bible can and in the highest level.
Excuse me.
Didn't I have there was an episode long ago when I sneezed for the first
That's
time
right,
on
that's
camera.
right.
So you did it.
No, I've been baptized. All right.
So you didn't last as long as I did. It's probably gotten dustier in here. So the meaning. So
Yes.
the meaning is the feeling that he talks about.
Right.
He writes that when Pharaoh says, "What is this you have done to me?" or I think it's Pharaoh,
It's
something.
that outrage
That is the feeling. The feeling
right,
is the
feeling
meaning.
holds the inner meaning.
So
Yeah.
I think about the feeling in it, and there's certain lines in the Bible that when I read them, they just make me feel a certain way, and it can be pretty strong. And one of those, it's in the New Testament. I don't remember which gospel. It might be Luke, where it's really said in the way that I like it. And it is when Jesus is being crucified, and the thieves are there on either side. And
Okay.
There's sort of the beginning of this little part is the words were written above him in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. This is the King of the Jews. And so then one of them says, "Hey, if you're the Christ, save yourself and us. Get down from
Right.
here." And the
kind
other
of
one
mocking him.
just
as I
mocking.
remember. Yeah,
And then
right.
the other one says, "Do you not even fear God, seeing as we are under the same condemnation, and we deserved it, but this guy doesn't." So that's sort of the lead up. But then he turns and he says to Jesus Christ, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And it might seem like he's just saying, "Hey, I did you a solid. When you get there, hook me up." But to me, it feels like wistful, and like he's not asking for a reward. He's just like, "Don't forget it. Don't forget me. Like hook me up, but like just don't forget that we had this moment." And to me, I just feel like
Right.
that's something.
That's so beautiful.
It's something beautiful.
And he's like, his life is over.
Yeah.
Like his life as an experiment kind of failed in the sense that he's being crucified because of crimes he's committed and stuff like that. And yet that earnest sort of plea, I like that a lot.
To me,
That's
like
beautiful.
there's something.
There's
It's
something
like
in
the
there.
sheep. There's something.
What is that?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something going on. So those are our
That's
answers.
great.
We want to hear, what are your answers? What kind of things are you wondering about? What treasures may be hidden beneath the surface? So we did that. We're warm, and when we're warmed up, there's no better place to go than the mighty Swedenborg keywords, which we're going to get to in part 2. Again, we have to defend ourselves every time. And I think this is against imaginary enemies, because I've never had anybody complain about the Swedenborg
Right,
keywords.
right.
But as we keep saying, it's important for you to understand these specific terms that Swedenborg uses a lot and uses in a very different way than you think.
That's right. That's right. Swedenborg has a habit, it seems to me, of adopting terminology that's familiar to people.
Yeah. Yep.
Like a term like grace or various different things, the Last Judgment, things like that.
Yes.
He'll use these terms from existing Christianity of his times, but he kind of gives it a spin or something like it's different in the way that he uses it. And
Yes.
so if you don't realize that, you may think, "Oh, I think he's talking about the same thing that we all talk about."
Yes.
But
Yes. And for this,
and that's why it seems important to do this, doesn't
because
it?
you don't want you go around, you can open Swedenborg, read it, get the total wrong impression of what his overall reporting on reality is, and there's a chance for all kinds of misunderstandings. So we're going
And
to
this is a
sort
big
that
one
out
tonight. This is a big one.
Yeah, that's right. Tonight is none other than angels and demons.
That's right.
And you might think this is just straightforward. As an angel is an angel. There's a thing that got wings. A demon is a demon.
That's right. Like, aren't the theories that basically, and this is not just in Christianity, but in a variety of religious traditions, angels are some kind of separately created race. They may be kind of humanoid in some sense, but they've always existed, and they didn't ever live on this planet or whatever. They're hierarchies. There's archangels and all kinds of layers to them, and then there's demons. There was Satan, who was an angel, was up in heaven, but he did something bad and he fell, and that's right. And along with that is the idea that people, it's related to the idea of the Last Judgment, and that when we die, someday we will awaken in our physical bodies and come back into this world. Because it's also about, like, what is the afterlife? How's that whole thing work? So all those are kind of wrapped in together.
So you got this idea out there, but is that really what angels and demons are? Assuming that they're really out there and that people do interact with them, is that the explanation behind the phenomena? And we could kind of theorize about it, or we could go ask angels themselves, which is exactly what Swedenborg did.
Good idea.
And we're going to take a look here at Last Judgment 14, where he reports on not only what they said about themselves, but why it's important. Angels rejoice at heart that it has now pleased the Lord to reveal a great deal about heaven and also about hell, and by this means to dispel, as much as possible, the darkness that has been increasing every day because the church has reached its end. Now,
it's striking to me that those it pained the angels that there's so little information down here. Like it was a relief to them to, wow, thank you. Oh, much better.
You really did it. And you may have noticed I was so excited at the end of that, because we're giving an example of why terminology is important right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you just saw in this sentence, it's the darkness is increasing every day because the church has reached its end. Are you talking about the church, the Christian church?
The buildings falling down? Or what?
There still seems to be the same church that Swedenborg was in, like Swedish Lutheranism.
Yeah,
is still,
that's still on. So,
we're not going to give you the explanation for that, but we're going to tell you in an upcoming show, we're going to explain what he means when he says the church.
That's going to be another
keyword.
Because
that is another keyword.
That's right. That's a good one.
It's important.
Good one.
You have to keep tuning in.
Anyway,
back to these angels who are excited about this new truth that's reaching the human race.
Information coming out.
So they want me to assure you, and this is so angels are like, hey, Swedenborg, make sure you tell the people this. They want me to assure you on their behalf that there is not one angel in all of heaven who was created an angel from the beginning, and that there is no devil in hell who has created an angel of light and cast down.
Wow, you mean so all that stuff, all those theories and all that is not true? Like he goes to the other side and he says, wait a minute, it's not the, I mean, he'd grown up with all those ideas.
That was his dad
and yet
taught
he goes
that?
there. Yeah. That's right. And it's not like that?
Well, and let's read on to see where did that all come from. No, all the people in heaven and all the people in hell have come from humankind.
So wait, what do you think that's saying? Like that means that our ancestors and everybody who passes on, old or young, like that's who makes up heaven and hell.
That's it.
There's nobody else up there except
there's like people on other planets.
Okay.
Which I know that book is coming out
that's
soon.
Weird enough. Yeah. Right.
But there's not, like, nobody started in the afterlife.
Nobody started there.
Yeah, and there are these beings that fit that description, these fantastic angels, fantastic devils, but it's all something we're on a track to becoming, should we so choose it.
Somewhere down the road.
Here he says, the ones in heaven are the ones who lived lives of heavenly love and faith while in the world, and the ones in hell are the ones who lived lives of hellish love and faith.
That's so weird to think about hellish love and hellish faith.
Right.
It's a weird way to put it.
Well,
but it's interesting that it's not that it's not love. It's just like an evil, distorted, sort of thing.
Again, love being a key word that we're doing a show on next week.
Oh,
so I'm just saying, man, you got to know what Swedenborg is talking about.
This keyword thing is good.
Yeah, man, keywords are awesome. Further, what is called the devil and Satan actually refers to hell as a whole.
Really? Okay, so there's not like one big devil, who sort of rules hell or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like the aggregate of all those people who ended up there.
Yes, yeah. Like the thing that's driving hell, you could call the devil. When people say like the devil made me do it, we know they're talking about
we do. Yeah.
Evil.
We say that, but yes,
evil passions.
Evil. That's right.
So why has the Christian world seized on this belief about the people in heaven and the people in hell?
Good question, huh?
Yeah. So angels have told me that it comes from a few passages in the Word understood only in their literal meaning and not illuminated and explained by means of a genuine body of teaching drawn from the Word.
Wow. Okay, we were just talking about the Bible a little bit ago, weren't we? Yeah, and I'm interested too that he uses the word few. Like there's a few passages,
right,
taken just literally out of context, that have led people to, there's like Isaiah 14, isn't it, about Lucifer who goes down, and there's just a few passages that's, okay, you build this whole structure out of there, not understanding. Oh, yeah.
So
that's not what that actually means.
A little bit of lacking in context, and he's saying that is what's at the root of all this stuff. But it wasn't just Christian traditions. There's, as you were saying before, there's a lot of traditions that would have some sort of there's permanent afterlife beings. That didn't come from us. But Swedenborg felt like or professed that one part of his mission in recording this stuff and telling it was to show people how things really are in the afterlife, because that kind of recalibrates how we approach life and what we think we are capable of doing and why we think things matter.
It's a really pretty huge thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if you think we're not, or like if you think when we die, we sit in the ground until someday some last judgment happens, or you doubt that story, or you think that's it, we're snuffed and it's over. It makes quite a difference to how you feel about yourself, how you feel about aging and various other things, compared to thinking, wait a minute, I've got a shot at angel, like I could get there from here.
Yes.
It really does change your whole narrative.
Well, you think about your own ceiling, and you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to be very good at basketball, and I don't really know how to put this IKEA furniture together. Like, what? I'm just not going to try that hard on myself, But if you think I can get to be an angel and continue to progress in love and wisdom, it gives you this renewed sense of hope. And so this is important for people to know for myriad reasons.
Yeah.
And Swedenborg writes further in Last Judgment 15 about it's time. It was time for this stuff to come out. I've been allowed to meet with angels and have had conversations with people in hell. I've been engaged in this interaction for many years now, sometimes without interruption from morning to evening. It's like a whole day
after, like these seminars or something. Kind of thing where you go to sleep, wake up the next day, have another meeting. And
put a long day at the spiritual office. And in this way, I have been taught about heaven and hell. This is why we're sitting here doing a show where we're just referencing what Swedenborg says, because he's not just like he had scattered experiences. He just had this methodical, long-lasting, thorough...
So much exposure. Yeah, right.
This is why it's such a valuable store of information. This has happened so that the people of the church will no longer remain in their misconceived beliefs about a resurrection on Judgment Day, about the state of souls in the meanwhile, and about the nature of angels and the devil. So he's saying that's why.
This stuff is important. Like, you might think, well, what does it matter what you think?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll all be set straight after we die anyway.
Yeah.
But it makes a difference to you now, what you what you think is going on, where the thoughts and feelings are coming from in your mind and your heart, and what's possible for us. It makes a difference.
And I wonder, because when he was writing, were those ideas even more prevalent in society and had more effect on policy? Are there different ideas that matter now, or is it the same ones?
Yeah. Well, just even the whole thing, I've talked to people who work in the field of, making coffins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, the whole coffin thing is about the fact that you're going to come out of the ground, and you need to be near a church or something like that.
Is that why we do it?
And so, like, cremation doesn't work with that theory. So, there are big things that have happened in our world just because of those beliefs.
That's right. Policy, foreign policy, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, right.
So that's like why Swedenborg feels like we got to talk about this.
It's so important. Yeah. So important. It's reminding me of a story that he told to someone who was very interested, who wanted to see an angel. You remember that story?
What? No.
Yeah, there was a cute story. He lived in Swedenborg lived in Södermalm, which is an island and part of the archipelago of Stockholm.
He lived on an island?
He lived on an island, which is kind of cool.
What an awesome dude.
Pretty big island, and one of his neighbors was a friend of his, and the neighbor had a daughter, Greta Askbom, and she would come over to his house because he was friendly, had this beautiful garden and a maze in it and stuff like that. And she would come over to his house. This happened repeatedly, apparently, as she called him Uncle Swedenborg. They weren't actually related, but he was like Uncle Swedenborg, family friend. And she would go over there and ask him, I want to see an angel, because she'd heard that he sees angels.
Like, hook me up.
I want to see an angel. And she lived not far down the road.
Yeah.
So she comes over again and again.
Yeah.
Says, I want to see an angel. So finally one day he says, okay. All right. And he takes him to a place where there's a curtain. He's got a curtain down, and he stands there in front of it, and then he lifts the curtain, and this is what she sees. Boom. She sees herself. Now, see, what he was saying to her was, you are an angel. You're an angel in training.
That's
right. You know, and I want to see an angel. I want to see an angel.
Yeah.
Well, as part of his theology is actually pretty deep. And this story comes down to us, not from Swedenborg, but from the grandson of that former young girl, you know, that really had an impact. That was a story that came down through the family that Swedenborg said, here, I'll show you an angel.
And if she still feels like, I'm going to tell that story to my grandson, it must have had an impact. You know, and I wonder, and it's a different impact than it would have been if he had somehow been able to, here's an angel, and mystically open the veil for her.
Right. I imagine at first, if I put myself in her shoes, it's a little disappointing. It's like, well, I've seen myself. I mean, come on. You know? It's
sort of like your reward is the good feeling you get from helping. Oh.
Is that it? Yeah. But I think over time, it really maybe sank into her that, wait, this is awesome, that we can be angels. You know, that he's saying, hey, you're already an angel, you know?
That's right.
That's cute.
So, and then let's just read one more quote here about that because we have this potential to be an angel, that our inner self, which we talked about in a previous episode, is actually, while we're in this world, developing into that angel,
or we talked about inner and outer self,
or into a demon, depending on what we're up to. So this is New Jerusalem, 40. Seen in its own right, a spiritual inner self is an angel of heaven. And while
this is a person on earth,
that's
like
right.
Your inner self, if you're a spiritual person, that can already be an angel of heaven.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And while it is living in the body, it is also in the company of angels, even though it is not aware of being so.
Oh, it's not aware. Wow, that's an interesting thought, that you could be surrounded by angels and not even necessarily know it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for some people the veil is thin, and they do have those experiences and so on. But a lot of other people might also be in heaven among angels, but they don't even know it because their senses aren't turned on in the inner self or something.
What'd you do this weekend? Nothing, but actually you hung out with angels.
That's right.
You didn't even know it. Once it is released from the body, it joins them.
Oh, that's so nice.
A merely earthly inner self, though, when seen in its own right, is not an angel, but a spirit, and is also in the company of spirits while it is living in the body. However, it is with spirits who are in hell, and after it's released from the body, it joins them.
Yeah,
so depending on which way
evil spirits. Yeah, right. So if you're merely earthly, if that's your focus kind of thing, then you're in not so good company.
You keep the same kind of company. He goes on. The deeper levels of the minds of people who are spiritual are actively raised up towards heaven because that is their primary focus. While the deeper levels of the minds of people who are merely earthly are actively turned toward this world because that is their primary focus.
And primary focus is like, that's what your mind, that's what you think about when you're not doing anything else, or you got some time to kill, or when nobody's looking or something. That's where your mind goes.
Yes.
You know, that's what you're focusing on.
This world,
that's very interesting,
being superficial things like worldly advantages, and it's not that you can never think about those, but if that's your primary focus, if that's all you're trying to do,
your whole goal is just that, to get
that doesn't get you hanging out with angels, not because they reject you, but just because that's not what they think about. You're too incompatible.
You're too different. Yeah, they want to be present with you and things that they relate to, like, hey, how about, things of heaven, or things about helping others or something.
You just got nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
For all of us, our inner levels, which are levels of our higher mind, are turned toward what we love above all. And our outer levels, which are levels of our lower mind, are turned in the same direction as the inner.
Ooh. And so there again, it said focus before, and there it said love above all. So the things that you love, what you love and what you focus on, that's kind of determines. So that's why it's up to us. We have the choice, right?
Yes.
We have a choice to have a heavenly nature or move in that direction, or a hellish nature, depending on where, what is the most exciting, interesting thing to us. What are we moving towards? Where's our passion?
And we're about to see in this next section just how much of an impact what we love and focus on has on the rest of us and our minds. So let's get ready now. It's time for our Spiritual World road trip. As always, the Spiritual World road trips are informative, enlightening. They are taking these principles and putting them into action. So one thing that
all this beauty behind us here.
yeah, we're definitely hanging with angels right now.
Yeah.
So during our lives on earth, there's angels and spirits that are around us, as we just heard, right?
That's
and those two sides are not passive. They are directly or just through sort of osmosis recruiting us to come join their side.
Oh.
Their angels are constantly trying to get us to think and focus on heavenly things, while demons are trying to do the opposite, get us to think and focus on hellish things. But they can't just force us to do something. They can only influence us according to our own interests, our own affections, sort of what we indulge in, and what we choose
you
to.
think they'd want to just push you around or something.
That's right.
And just like, hey, think what I think.
Yeah.
It's important.
The demons definitely would, but it's only if we give them something to interact with. And so we're going to go to a story that Swedenborg tells in Spiritual Experiences 647, where he describes a time in which he was being influenced, and just that when you've got to focus on something, it doesn't matter who tries to dissuade you from it. So the title of this is Speaking and Coaxing Are of No Avail When the Heart is Longing, Moved by a Love.
Speaking and coaxing. So in other words, someone else trying to talk you into or out of this or that, coaxing you, like, come on, you shouldn't do that, or nagging or whatever. It just doesn't have any effect if your heart is longing and is moved by some love.
That's right. He begins. Through much experience with spirits, I have learned that persuasion contrary to the feelings is of no avail whatsoever. For very often my heart has been moved by some feeling, and meanwhile, spirits as well as angels, remember, he can hear them, would coax, saying that this should be done and not that. But as long as I was gripped by that feeling, their coaxing could have no effect whatsoever, as I even told them in response on several occasions.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of sense of humor in there. Yeah. That's true. And it's interesting, in so many other stories, like some of the other spiritual road trips we've been on recently, it's about someone else.
Yes.
And I thought when you introduced this about speaking and coaxing would be about him trying to coax somebody else. But no, he's telling this story about himself.
Yeah.
That spirits and even angels were lining up, telling him what should be done and what shouldn't.
Yeah.
And he is just talk to the hand. He's completely stubborn.
Yeah. Lay off me. I'm starving.
Yes, that's right. If it happened to be a food-related point. Yeah, that's right. And
to quote Chris Farrow.
As I told them in response on several occasions, that you're getting nowhere. I mean, you're wonderful. I love you, but you're getting absolutely nowhere, because my love is against what you're saying. And
that he was aware enough to observe it, but still couldn't change it. But you see here that there is a change coming.
Oh, really?
He says also this, that if the feeling shifted only a little, then at once my mind was changed, and I would yield to the persuasion. And isn't that is so true?
That is amazing.
You just see something a little differently. Like you have an idea, like someone suggests, let's go to the park. And you're like, no, I'm not going to go to the park. I'm thinking of rain. I'm thinking of hard to get a parking spot, all this stuff. But then something shifts and you remember something fun there. And the whole concept of it as a package is like, of course I'll do that. And then that's when you end up getting in the car.
Yeah, and if this may not have happened to you yet, but if you ever get in an argument with another human being, sometimes people actually quarrel and things like that.
Why would you do that?
You can get so intense and stubborn about, like, my point is right, and you know what I mean, and you're just unmoving. It doesn't matter. Like if you had all the evidence in the world or something, you're not going to move off the dime.
No,
but
because it's not even about the evidence.
Once you leave it alone a little bit, take a deep breath or go somewhere else, or do something to take a walk or something like that. As soon as that cracks, then I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know what got in.
Like, no, you're right.
It's so interesting that he said if the feeling shifted only a little, then at once my mind was changed. So if you can get that to move a little bit, it's like a tipping point, isn't it?
Yes.
In a sense. Boom, the whole thing changes around. And then he would yield to what the angel, then he suddenly became available in a different way to this angel input.
Yes, right. So, and from this and many actual experiences, I was able to learn that all persuasion contrary to one's loves can achieve absolutely nothing.
Now, isn't there so much in our world that says that, oh no, just repeat it so many times, it'll become true to them or something?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like persuasion, just all these efforts, all the marketing and all the things that are trying to get you to think this. But here, this is saying, hey, if someone's love is active and is against what you're saying, you will get absolutely nowhere. It's interesting.
And now listen
And
to...
he's observing this in himself.
Right. Listen to where he takes this now.
Oh.
He says, this is the reason why those spirits who are demons, who operate through the passions, are the most dangerous.
I see. So this is like that thing about there being different levels of hell, right? And the demons are the worst ones, for very, very deep level. Yeah. And the people he calls Satan sometimes will operate through your thoughts. They have false thoughts that counter your thoughts. But here I think he's talking about these demons who operate through your passions. He even talks about evil spirits that try to bypass your thought process, just sneak into your feelings and sneak into your heart. And they're the most dangerous. I can see why, because if they can get your heart, they're not even trying to persuade you of anything. They just want your heart to be aimed in a certain direction. Yeah. If they can get your heart going in a way that they like, man, you're a runaway train. There's nothing can stop you.
So we have a story here that's both about the influence of our inner self and the focus, but then also the potency of angels and demons and how that shows up in our life. He finishes, on the other hand, the angel's way of working is to bend minds toward good through the feelings, the Lord so directing. And I see that like contrast there of the demons are working into your passions directly. Angels are trying, they use feelings because, as we saw, it's the feelings that do anything.
That's right.
But just the way that that's described seems to be much more like they're gentle and they're non-destructive. That they're, hey, will you come along with me on this? But I'm going to leave you rational, and I'm going to try to get you to agree in freedom rather than I'm going to try to sneak you into doing whatever I want.
It seems like those demons are just sort of inflaming your passions or something, whereas these angels are actually working with your mind to give you a thought that goes in a positive direction and leads you toward good through your feelings with the Lord sort of behind the scenes, managing the whole process. So it doesn't mean that it's a hopeless thing, but it's fascinating that there's kind of a protection in a way that our interests, our passions carry the day, kind of thing. But it's not that it's non-negotiable. It's just when that thing is active, you can't move that.
No, it's not permanent.
But if it moves an inch, boom, all of a sudden it can just
notice these cycles in yourself.
That's right.
Notice how that in our interactions with people, but also just when you're feeling strongly about something, like this is how it is. This is how I got it. Just think, okay, well, if I felt differently about this thing, would it be different to me? And that's actually, it sounds silly, but there's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
And that to just say, just because I'm feeling this way now, doesn't mean that's how things are.
Yes.
So hopefully. Hopefully we've given you guys some things to think about in that story and in anything here, because we're actually really hoping we gave you something to think about, because we're about to do our chat Q&A section. So if you don't have any questions, it's going to be awkward. So please ask some questions as we go into our next section. Because there's got to be some stuff we forgot. Right?
That's right.
What's on your mind? So we're going to see...
Such a huge topic.
So if you're there in the YouTube, write your questions into the chat, and we'll be pulling up a few right now, and we're going to start right now. And this is the first one. Jimmy Jennings asks, didn't God know that man would misunderstand the Bible in later times and have the apostles write that Swedenborg would explain everything? So the reference, first of all, isn't that he referencing, I have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now, but the Spirit of truth, that there would be a new understanding that would come.
That would come later. That's right. And I know it bothers a lot of people to think that why would something be written in a way that would be misleading?
Hasn't that caused some problems?
If you see that's coming.
Isn't that what we started saying? Look, there's all these people misinterpreting the Bible and it's causing all these false beliefs. But beyond that, we know it leads to all kinds of wars and people have lifetimes of guilt. Is it worth the risk?
Yeah, I know. It seems like a huge cost, doesn't it? And yet one of the things that Swedenborg says about it that sort of eventually kind of penetrated my mind, made me think about it in a different way, was that it has to be written in a kind of external language of correspondences. Like he can't just come straight out and say what it is. He has to talk in terms of sheep and grapes and things like that, because it's holding heaven. It's sort of complicated to talk about, but it has to have this correspondence. And so there was this huge risk of like thousands of years of misunderstanding. And yet I think it's true that there was this foretelling, even in the book of Revelation, where it says that the seven thunders uttered their voice. Mm-hmm. And then John heard it, and he was about to write it down. They said, "Don't write it." Swedenborg actually says that what he wrote in his book called The Lord, or Doctrine of the Lord, contained what John heard a couple of thousand years before, but was not allowed to write.
Right.
And so it's kind of a prediction that the more understanding is going to come at some point. At some point, it'll be revealed what the seven thunders said.
Yes. And it has to be that if God is going to let something happen, the sum total of the good that comes out of it is greater than the sum total of the evil. Just because it's been misused by people and caused misunderstandings, it doesn't mean if there was something else in its place, that could have been worse. Like Swedenborg says, if God had just straight up wrote exactly what it meant, that would have been poisonous, because people would have taken that, corrupted it. That this weird, confusing outer sense is actually a protection. It's sort of like you're getting. It's like you got a little microchip in there that can't get wet, and it's going to rain. So you put this thing around it, keeps it dry, and then once the rain lets up, I guess. and then you open it up,
take it out, and read the chip, kind of thing.
And that's where we are now.
And as far as I understand it, nobody in the history of whatever has ever been condemned to hell for their beliefs. Swedenborg says in Divine Providence number 101 that you aren't even asked what your religion is when you get to the other world or whatever. It's just what kind of a life, what sort of a person were you?
What's your primary focus?
Yeah, what's your primary focus? So what did you love? How did you treat other people and things like that? So it wasn't at risk of people's salvation, but it's just a lot of confusion that needs clearing up when people go to the other side. Same thing happened to Swedenborg. He went with all that confusion and big learning experience. So
I don't know if we've added to the confusion just now, or hopefully helped a few things. But anyway, thanks so much, Jimmy Jennings.
Yeah, good.
Let's look at the next one.
Stimulating question.
This is Matt Klein. Hey, Matt Klein. Did EM say anything about how demons always knew who Jesus was, even when people around him did not understand who he was? Because you have these instances of Jesus goes out into the wilderness and there's somebody possessed by a demon, and even Jesus' disciples at that time are saying, well, we're not sure who you are, maybe you're John the Baptist, but the possessed person is like, Jesus Christ, why are you here?
Are you here to torment us before the time? And it's fantastic, isn't it? In the New Testament, the demons are way more on top of who Jesus is than anybody else.
So does Swedenborg comment?
Swedenborg does comment on that. Yes, on the clarity, and because of being in that spiritual world, they could see who he was, that he was kind of a little bit disguised here. Yeah. You know what I mean? He it was important that he not appear to be like the thundering God of the universe, just so people could make up their own minds about his message,
Yeah.
So he seemed like just sort of ordinary, I think, to some people.
Yeah.
But the evil spirits who could see behind the scenes knew exactly what was going on.
I think about, everything that's happening on a large scale also happens on a smaller scale inside our minds. I feel like I've seen this principle play out inside me, because if you think of the harmful, sort of destructive thoughts and feelings in us as the evil spirits, when like things that I feel like are divine truth, which is like Jesus Christ, when those show up, even if to my just regular rational Curtis self, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's true or not about divine providence. When I apply those principles in my mind, suddenly the demon parts are like it takes away all their, like I think those parts of the mind, those stories that are written about me or about life that are from hell, they immediately recoil from the divine truth. Yeah. It's almost like the thoughts in our minds that are sort of neither good nor bad don't really notice it, but the thoughts that are directly opposed to God and heaven immediately have a reaction. So I wonder if that's that playing out.
I love the way that works. And I've seen things like that too in just human interactions, that when something comes in, like things, I don't know how to put this into words, but you may have some interaction. Let's say there's some committee or something like that, and things just seem pretty normal.
Yeah.
And then someone introduces something that's so heavenly. It's just interesting. Sometimes other people just freak out of it. They just have a reaction about, you know what I mean? Because something of the Lord came into the room, and then this other thing just sort of cries out. You know?
Yeah.
And you know, so sometimes you even see that in human interaction, it seems like.
So whatever's true about Jesus and the demons has got to be true about all kinds of other aspects of life. Because
That's
everything follows everything.
Yes, it's a picture, and what's depicted there in the New Testament is a sort of permanent picture of, you know, how things work, like things in our minds work that way, as you were just saying.
That's why it's sacred, because it's eminently useful.
Yeah.
You know, no matter who you are, no matter where your life is, this is teaching you something about your own life, which is hip. Right. Thanks, Matt, for the question. Good. Speaking of hip, let's do another one. Stop the Laughter asks, do all beings, angels, demons, know what they are, or do they perceive themselves as human still? And my sense is angels know what they are. Demons think they're still people.
Yeah, that's a good response. Angels are more in touch with the truth. And but one of the things that Swedenborg talks about is that when people go to the other world, there's some point at which they're told that they're no longer in this world, you know, that they've passed on. And generally, my impression is that people who are really, really nasty and devoted to evil just kind of forget that pretty quickly. Like, it doesn't sink in. They think they're still alive here in this world. And sometimes you remind them, they go, oh, I forgot all about that. I'm an idiot. You know, I forgot all about that when the angel told me that I died and everything. And I think the way that people appear to each other is, you know, in hell or in heaven is just people look like regular human beings. We talked a little bit a few weeks ago about when the light of heaven shines in, and then people in hell will look monstrous in that situation. And I think that angels have a better remembrance too of, like, I think they remember who they were in this world and what happened, although some of that is sort of made quiet. Yeah. But Swedenborg talks about evil spirits who just have no clue who they were in this, like they've completely forgot. They've gone into this sort of fantasy about themselves or something like that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, angels are more human than we are. Like, it was how Swedenborg defines the term human is that human is this aspect of God that we are sort of an echo out of. But you have this phase here, what we call human, which is when we're in the body, but actually our bodies just imitate sort of the true spiritual forms that are out there. But so angels, though, do understand better, like you're saying, that once you were in a body, but now we know what we are. Angels, it's like they've got the lights on, or they got the internet or something. They know, like, we're in heaven, this is how heaven is, this is how earth is, God is in charge of this here. Demons have a very imaginary, illusory picture of what reality is. That a lot of them don't know that there is a life after death, even though that they are in the life after death. And many of them, as Swedenborg says, either long to be or still are, think they still are in the body.
That's right.
But yet there is sort of some of the, because they're, as we were saying before, they're thinking in an earthly, worldly way. That's the only kind of happiness they can find. So God has kind of structured things so that they can feel as much as possible like they are there. They're the light of heaven. When it's not shining, they appear to each other in a human form, and they appear like they're relatively good looking people, and that's because that's the best way to live for them at the time. But the answer is, like, angels always know more than we do, and demons, although they know certain areas of life really well, like how to get what they want through devious means, their broad pictures is totally skewed.
Yes, and there's some pretty, I mean, Swedenborg he kind of uses the word stupid quite a bit.
And that's no offense.
About them.
Yeah. Well, right. So
there's a certain level of stupidity there, I think. Yeah.
And different, that sometimes when there's a lot of cleverness, he calls it insanity. That they're, even though you really well know how to mess with somebody,
if it's crafty and malicious,
you don't even realize, though, that what you're doing is not only destroying other people, it's slowly destroying yourself. You're insane. Yeah. But right. So
that's right.
That's what we've heard anyway. Thanks so much. Stop
Good
the
one.
laughter. And we will stop the laughter, just in case that was a message to us. That's it, actually. It flew by. But
Wow.
interacting with you guys as the audience it's nice to let them get at least a word in edgewise. How about we give them like a whole 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Let's now
Great.
meet an audience member in our next section. Hey everybody, I'm lucky enough to be sitting here with Chris Dunn, who does community relations for Swedenborg Foundation, which means he's answering a lot of your wonderful comments and questions, but also just happens to be a Swedenborg enthusiast. So I want to know, you weren't raised Swedenborgian, you didn't always know about him, so I want to know a little bit about how did you find the whole Swedenborg thing?
Yeah, well, it's a story that constantly moves me because it speaks to just how we're led and how we don't really know what's happening with our lives at any given moment. I was a former Catholic, and I took a job as a fundraiser in this town.
Yes.
And so I was working with a college and a church that was founded on the faith of the new church. So this is Swedenborg.
Yeah.
And I remember I had no real idea of the power of what Swedenborg was writing about when I first came in. And I remember just looking up on the internet, like, who is Swedenborg? What's he about?
Because you were trying to be able to do your job well.
Yeah, because obviously, as a fundraiser, if you're working with donors, you want to be able to connect with them on really meaningful topics. And for a lot of people around here, faith, the faith of the new church is a really important topic. So I just got to read Swedenborg as a means of getting to know my donors.
Yeah.
And it completely opened up a world that has led me in ways that I cannot imagine, and it's given me the greatest joy.
That's awesome. I mean, you found our videos pretty early in that search, right?
Yep. I remember the first video I found. It was the universal categories of love.
With the lawnmower.
Yep, lawnmower video.
Okay.
And it opened up this idea of the internals of ourselves, like what's going on inside of ourselves, the loves that we have, the things that we value. They all connect to the spiritual world. Everything is connected. And the way in which we order and prioritize what we're doing in our life and what we have an affection for, that matters. And we can actually be setting ourselves up to receive heaven by how we love and what we put as important.
Well, and we wanted to do this interview with you because you are probably as much or more hyped up about Swedenborg than anybody that I know. So I want you to share a little bit of why did you stick around? Why did you start to get interested apart from your job? What's Swedenborg doing for you?
Yeah. Well, I can't say this strongly enough. This stuff is revolutionary. It is absolutely the most remarkable thing that I've ever discovered in my life.
Yeah.
And there are so many different facets of Swedenborg's writings that would qualify what makes this revolutionary.
Okay.
Let me just start with a few that are close to my heart.
Yeah.
The idea that there is an internal sense to the Bible. There is a level that the angels understand that we can enter into and help to see the true meaning behind the stories in the Word through Swedenborg. That to me is revolutionary. And I want to just throw this out there as a Protestant and as a Catholic formerly. When I was reading the stories in the Bible, say we'll take stories about violence in the Old Testament. You can look at in Exodus, Joshua being called to destroy different tribes in the land of Canaan.
It's a bad one.
It's a bad one. And growing up, how do you grapple with this divine identity of this book and the inherent massacres that are going on in the name of God? That doesn't jive well, and it actually, for me, called into question the credibility of that book.
Yeah.
Because where's the love there? It's violence. What you realize in the internal sense is that that's actually about your battle against evils and falsities inside of yourself.
Yeah.
So as Joshua took up arms against these different tribes and fought against them in Canaan to make way for the Israelites, we fight the things inside of ourselves that take us away from love and God and our neighbor. And in that fight, that's where we find true victory. We find the place where we can finally settle after defeating those evils and falsities. We can settle in to something better. That completely shifts the way you hold the word.
Yeah.
It takes away any sense of doubt about what that story is about, and it transforms it into a sense of, hey, this story is not only making sense now, but it's about me. It's about what I can do to grow.
It goes from being a major liability to being an asset. Like, right away. I love it, and I've had the same kind of feeling. So there's one.
Yep.
What else do you like?
Man, well, let me just say one more thing about the internal sense.
Okay, don't let me stop you.
Yeah. No, it's so you have one level in the word, which is say things that don't necessarily jive based upon violence or what have you. But you also have strange things in the word, like take the end of the Gospel of John, where Jesus is seen by the disciples. They're out trying to fish all night. And these guys are like totally not catching anything. Yeah. They're PO'd. Nothing's working. They're fishing on the left side of the boat, and for whatever reason, they're just failing big time. And then Jesus comes out and says, hey guys, like, why don't you just fish on the right side of the boat? Like, just switch sides. And all of a sudden, they can't catch enough fish. There's so much fish that they don't know what to do. And then they, from that place, go to the shore and have a meal with Jesus. What is that about? Like, is it just because you switch sides? Like, just switch sides. Just go to the right side. It'll be fine.
Yes.
That's a strange thing to read.
And how is this divine commentary on something? It just seems like, okay, what's the takeaway? Just follow instructions?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. So, what Swedenborg says is that the right side talks about operating from a place of love and letting all of the truth that you know and you come to acquire qualify the good things that you do. So it's not about living a life of just throwing truth out there and just operating from the sphere of truth, but it's letting that truth set your heart on fire, letting that become the operating system of you actively converting that truth into good. That place of love is fishing from the right side of the boat. If that's your operating system, if that's how you engage with the world, you'll reap a lot of reward, spiritual reward. And so that's a really powerful insight into the way we're supposed to be living our lives. St. Francis, one of my favorite, when I was a Catholic, he was my patron saint. There's a quote associated with him that says, preach the gospel at all times, and only if necessary, use words. Let your life be a living testimonial to your faith, the way in which you live.
So we could sit here and talk about this forever. And I love hearing you talk about it because, as I said before, you're hyped about it. And I like knowing that the material can create the kind of impact that it did in your life. And I just want to say thanks for taking a moment to share some of that. And we'll look forward to continuing to hear from you as the journey develops.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. And I just want to say, I love connecting with people on Swedenborg Foundation. Off Left Eye, I'm so passionate about this, and everyone on this community is amazing. So I feel blessed.
That's all of you. Thank you so much. That was fun getting to hang out with Chris because sure, it's sort of cheating because he works here, but he just started working here, and he not that long ago he was just like anybody watching the program and finding Swedenborg. So it's just cool to get to hear what moves him.
Great.
We want to hear a little more of what moves all of you because we're to the point where we're doing our ice melter, which is hearing your answers to the question in the Icebreaker.
That's right.
Which, if you don't remember, the question was, what biblical stories, internal sense, are you most curious about? So did we get any takers on this? We've been furiously compiling it behind the scenes. This is what we got. From the Old Testament. And by the way, there were so many of these. We got such a big response, we couldn't even include them all here. So if you don't see yours, we'll get you next time. Very sorry. Garden of Eden. We had the Tower of Babel. We had Sodom and Gomorrah. We had Parting the Red Sea. All of those fascinating stories. And then the Book of Job. And I'm with you on that because Swedenborg doesn't really give much on the Book of Job, but I think I love it.
He gives a lot of details, but not the whole sweep of the thing. And that's right. Yeah.
Jonah and the whale, and then Ezekiel's vision.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see. Okay, so that's just
Good
the Old
examples.
Testament, though, and all of those. That's a bunch of meaning in there. Here's the New Testament.
They're great. They're great stories, and you wonder, what does those things mean?
The Immaculate Conception.
Wow, that's a good one.
Mr. Binker's the cat. Jesus had a recorded ancestry all the way to Adam. At what point did the ancestor not become a literal person?
Yes, right. And you've got those two genealogies. One goes up and the other goes down.
Yeah.
Matthew versus Luke and all that.
Yeah, so who was sitting there like, well, my dad wasn't actually a literal person.
Yeah, right.
When Jesus was tempted in the desert, three people, Hannibal, Matthew, Bush. And then finally, Revelation by far.
That's right.
Book of, and who wouldn't? And Swedenborg wrote 2 different book series on the Book of Revelation.
That's right. Like some 8 volumes or something.
So,
he wrote on
and he didn't even cover everything that's in there.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
did Swedenborg speak about an inner meaning of Paul's comment, 2 Corinthians 12:9? But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
Wow, interesting question.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I don't know whether he comments on that. There's some places where he just lists passages and things like
Right.
that. I don't remember him discussing that specifically, but that idea of weakness, he like strength through weakness.
Yeah.
He gets to that quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of that story in Revelation 3 where it's the Church of Philadelphia, as it turns out. And it says that you have a little strength and have not, given up on my name or something like that.
Yeah.
And the little strength means powerlessness, like how important it is
Yes.
that we see ourselves as relatively powerless. That's a good thing. And the Philadelphia is like one of the best of the 7 churches in those letters. And part of it is that powerlessness. So he talks about things like that. But I love that epistle, that statement about the thorn and the strength through weakness and that.
See our episode, The Meaning of the Book of Revelation, Letters to the 7 Churches, for what all of those churches'
That's right.
letters means according to Swedenborg. Thank you so much, everyone. And I do feel like on Swedenborg's birthday, it's sort of Swedenborg's birthday
It's sort of his
today.
birthday.
It's
Sort of.
because there was this whole thing with the Gregorian calendar that Jonathan was. Anyway, he was sort of born today.
Yes.
He might be glad to know that there's a bunch of people hungry for the inner meaning of parts of the Bible.
Oh,
because
he'd be
when
thrilled,
he was writing, nobody was looking for that.
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of people just sort of, I don't think so, and
Yeah.
just push back and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I think it would thrill him that there were 4 slides and we couldn't even fit everything in.
That's great. And I think not just because he's like, well, now people care about my subject material, but to him, this was a huge opportunity cost the human race was incurring on itself, because the inner meaning that Chris, you saw so pumped up about.
Yes, that's right.
That is the greatest tool, the most complete instruction manual to life, as crazy as that sounds, that exists.
That's
and so
right.
and so you've got to, for us to be trying to get in there, figure out what's in it. Swedenborg says that all of the message, everything you hear on this show, was somehow pulled out in conjunction
That's
with
right.
that. So
and to rescue the Bible from oblivion, I think as the human race was kind of getting more and more sophisticated in some
Right.
ways, it's just like we would just throw that thing out because
Yeah.
it rationally, like, so hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And so it was so great that someone came along and said, no, before you throw that out, it's really awesome, have
Yeah.
another look at it. Can I explain? Because maybe somebody online has a question about, what do you mean sort of birthday? Right?
Yeah, we
Do you want me to
better
do
follow up on
a
that.
brief
You have
riff on that?
2 minutes or
Okay.
one minute.
I think I can do it in
Okay.
1 minute. So there was a Julian calendar, and then there was the Gregorian calendar, because the Julian calendar didn't take into account, it was a little wrong. It needed to get no leap year on the centuries and things like that. So it got off by about 10 days by the time Swedenborg was born. So the day that Swedenborg was born was called January 29th, which is today. But it was actually what we now know as February the 8th, 10 days later. And there's some meaning to me in the fact that it's February the 8th, because it's sort of like halfway through winter, like a times and half a time. That's spring, summer, and fall, and then half of winter, and that's when he's born. It's like part of the new thing. And anyway, moving through all that too quickly. But so that's what it has to do with, that nominally, yes, it was January 29th. If you asked him, what was your birthday? So January 29th. But in 1753, when he was 65 years old, his birthday changed. Like they changed the calendar. So,
Did he get 2 birthdays that year? I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
That would make it all worth it.
That would make it worthwhile, having
Yes.
that short month and everything.
And hopefully you guys have all felt like this was worthwhile. Not just our explanation of Swedenborg. happy sort of birthday, Swedenborg, but the whole show. It's been worthwhile to us just because we know that we're hanging out with all of you, and we super appreciate that.
Yes, indeed.
And we hope we can do it again soon. If we're going to be back on the air next week, if you enjoyed this week, like and subscribe. That helps us get out onto the YouTube. If you want to support the show and make it possible, consider joining us on Patreon, which is our little rewards program. You give $1 per episode of the show. We give you behind the scenes footage. It's a way for us to say thanks for making this possible as a nonprofit. That's how we do it. So check that out. And we will be back 8 o'clock Eastern time next week, where we're going to be talking about a little thing called love. What does Swedenborg mean when he says love? Because even
topic.
love is not what you might think. Thanks again, Dr. Jonathan Rose, for hanging out.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thanks
Good
to
fun.
all of you.
Good to see you, everybody.
Swedenborgian Life is Amy Aquarola, Morgan Beard, Curtis Childs, Karen Childs, Matthew Childs, Alexa Cole, John Connolly, Cara Dom, Chris Dunn, Stuart Farmer, Ben Keys, Reed McCardle, Chelsea Odner, Jonathan Rose, Shiloh Silverman, and Shada Sullivan.